Good morning, everyone. This is Mrs. Spatola here with the answers from last night's homework. Last night we had a couple of word problems, so please pause the video, take a look at the answers. Number one, the answer, some pretty big denominators. Number one, 33/40 planted with vegetables. And then we could see that 7/40 were with flowers. So in this case, question number two, are there more flowers or peas in Emma's garden? When you're comparing, 13/40 is more than 1/8. So keep that in mind. Number three, 1/2 went to Cheryl. And as we slide down here, number four, Mrs. Smith eating all that pizza she ate for breakfast. She ate 4/9 for breakfast. Some subtracting with borrowing. And number five, Mrs. Gelderman, that fisherman, she had the shrimp weighed that was caught was 23/24 of an ounce. Let's take a look at the next page. On the next page, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number one, when you're multiplying a number with a variable, we haven't gotten to this yet, but you bring the variable along. So 12x is equal to 12x. So number one was yes. Number two was yes. Are they equivalent? Number three was no, because 4 to the third power is not equal to 4 to the fourth power. And number four, 16 is not equal to 20. Let's take a look at today's lesson. I'm sure you're excited just as I am, because today we are going to be multiplying fractions. Unit 5, Lesson 7, Multiplying Fractions and Mixed Numbers. How can you multiply fractions and mixed numbers? For the do now today, number one says, what do you think the phrase simplify before you multiply means? Well, this you're going to hear us say a lot in class. Simplify before you multiply or you will cry might be something you heard from your elementary school teacher, but simplify before you multiply is something that makes your life easy. When you are multiplying or dividing fractions, if you simplify before you actually do the multiplication, it just makes the number smaller and more manageable. So simplify before you multiply means to make the multiplying of fractions easier and gets it closer to simplest form. So pause the video and write that down. Okay, so you could just copy that down. Making numbers smaller and easier to work with when possible, so fractions are closer to simplest form. In the box that you see to the right is a diagram. Now, I really don't use too many diagrams when I multiply fractions. We'll talk about this more in class, so I'm just going to leave that be for the time being. That's a great visual, but you have to be pretty accurate when you're drawing. So in this case here, let's just to quickly talk about it and just to super quickly review. This is 2/5 here, so what they did was they shaded in 2 out of 5 sections that they drew, and then going the opposite directions, they made 2 out of 3. And then basically the answer was, so 2 to the 5th, 2/5 times 2/3 is 4/15. They gave you a visual so that in this case, you basically overlap the two drawings on top of each other, and the ones that are double shaded, like in this section here, I don't know if you could see me shading that in, that would be your answer. More so in 6th grade, we use the numbers. So that's what we're going to be going more towards. All right, simplify before you multiply means what? Making numbers smaller and easier to work with whenever possible, so fractions are closer to simplest form. Also, another key concept in this lesson is the word of in a word problem means, does anybody know what that means? The word of means to what? It's an operation. It means to multiply. Not sure if you've heard that before, but that's what we're going to keep in mind. The word of means multiply. All right, there's 4 different types of fractions that we're going to be looking at when multiplying today. Let's take a look at the first one. The first one is going to be multiplying a fraction by a fraction. Now, this thing called cross simplifying is something that I am going to make optional. Not everyone will be using that at first. For some students, it may be a little confusing. For other students, they'll see the connection between the numbers, and that's great. But let's just go ahead. In this box here, in the boxes are some examples, but we're going to kind of skip over number 1 for the time being. And we're going to go right to number 2. Multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and always put your answer in simplest form. So for this problem here, what's covered in the box is 8/9 times, and notice they're using the dot, times 3/2. Now, this could have easily been 2 mixed numbers that they changed to improper fractions in order to multiply. So in this case here, when you multiply fractions, you multiply the numerators. So 8 times 3 is 24, and you should be doing this with me. And 9 times 2 is 18. Okay, so 24 divided by 24 over 18 is an improper fraction. So in this case here, what you would want to do is divide to put it in simplest form. Now, you can use your calculator to help you, but as usual, you have to show the work in order for it to work. Now, 24 over 18, some students might look at it and say, okay, before I divide 18 into 24, I can just simplify. What's the greatest common factor of 24 and 18? Well, before I do that, I'm just going to show you the straight division. 24 divided by 18, 18 goes into 24 one time, okay, goes in one time with how much left over? 6 left over, and then we're going to put our denominator, which is 18. But when I look at 1 and 6 over 18, that is not in simplest form. So I'm still not done. So in that case there, I can divide each of these by 6 over 6. So my final answer is 1 1/3. Okay, that's my final answer. Okay, I could also do it this way. I could do the same problem again. Watch, 8 over 9 times 3 over 2. And without cross canceling or anything, I can just multiply across the top, 24 over 18. But then I notice that each of these can be divided by 6. So I can do, this would be 4 over 18 divided by 6 is 3, and 4 over 3 is equal to 1 1/3. Now look, I got my answer again there. So we had this way to do it here, we had this way to do it here, or we can use this here is what we call cross canceling. Now if you're looking at this and you're trying to figure it out, I'm going to explain how it works, okay? So again, multiplying fractions, multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, straight across. It's easier than adding. You don't have to find a common denominator, none of that stuff. You just straightforward multiply. That's why kids love multiplying much more than adding or subtracting. So again, if it's 8 over 9 times 3 over 2. Now watch what happens. When you are cross canceling, all you're doing is you're looking either up and down. Okay, you're looking either up or down. You're looking either in the section of the numerator and one from the denominator. If you can simplify, so it's really cross simplifying rather than cross canceling. You're cross simplifying. So check this out. 8/9, can that be simplified? So you're doing it before you actually multiply. Can 8 over 9 be simplified? No, it cannot. But can 8 or 2, 8 and 2, can either of those be simplified? When I look at 8 over 2, if that was a fraction, could that be simplified? Yes, it absolutely can. What happens with that? I can see that 2 can go into them. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now I'm going to look on the opposite side. 4/9 can't be simplified. 3 over 1 can't be simplified. By the way, we don't put things in whole numbers until we're totally done. Now I'm going to look on the other cross diagonal, so check this out. 3 and 9. Is there a common factor? The answer is yes. Now, some kids absolutely love this stuff. Other kids do not. If you do not, don't stress. You don't have to do it. If you love it, go for it. 3 and 9, what's the common factor? The common factor is 3. So what I'm going to do here, I say 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Watch how this works. 4 times 1 is 4. 3 times 1 is 3. Notice I'm getting the 4 over 3, just like I got all the way back here in this problem over here. Okay, I got the 4/3. I'm getting the 4/3 here, and now I can put it as a mixed number. So in this case, this one would turn out to be 1 1/3. It actually cuts down a lot of space, but you have to really honestly be good with your facts and see the common factors in order for it to work. If not, just simply multiply across and multiply up and down. All right, let's take a look at another example. Next example, 2/5 times 3/4. Well, when I look on the diagonals, I do not see, well, actually I do see a common factor. But before I do the simplify, before you multiply, I'm just going to do it straight across. 2 times 3 equals 6. 5 times 4 equals 20. Again, this might be easier for some students. Again, what is the common factor? That is not in simplest form, and that's the goal, is to get the fraction in simplest form. What is the common factor here? I can see that each of these can be divided by 2, so my final answer is 3 over 10. And I'm done. Now, if you chose to do the cross canceling, if you choose to do this, this is for you. 2/5 times 3/4. Okay, watch. 2, where are the common factors? I see that 2 and 4, oops, sorry about that. I see that 2 and 4 have a common factor of 2, so I can simplify. It's almost like simplifying one from the top. You cannot simplify from one across the top. It has to be one from the top, one from the bottom. It can either be up and down this way, or it can be on a diagonal this way, or on a diagonal this way. Okay, it can never be straight across the top. Never, never, never. All right, so let's simplify before I multiply here. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Check this out. 3 times 1 is 3. 5 times 2 is 10, and I'm done. Notice I did not have to do any of this extra work over here. That's the beauty of it. Again, if you prefer this method, it's optional. You can do it. If it's too confusing, don't stress yourself, and we can talk about it more in class tomorrow. Let's continue and see what else we have for today. The next concept is multiplying a fraction by a whole number. Multiplying a fraction by a whole number. The first thing you're going to do is, if you have a whole number, you're going to put the whole number over 1. Then again, this is the optional one here. Cross simplify the diagonals if you can, or even up and down. This is optional. If that's too confusing, just skip it. So you would do number 1, put the whole number over 1, go right down to number 3 here, multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, but it is your responsibility to put it in simplest form. When you cross simplify or simplify before you multiply, basically all you are doing is the simplifying before you do the multiplying. Either that or you can do it after. Honestly, it doesn't matter. It's whatever you prefer. Let's look at this example. So for this example here, I have 5 times 8/10. So in this case here, it says I have to put the whole number over 1, and that's what I did here. You always have to have a fraction times a fraction. You cannot multiply a whole number or a mixed number by a fraction. It's always a fraction by a fraction, another rule. So if I'm looking at this one and I do the multiplication, I could simply solve this doing it this way. 5 times 8 is 40 over 10. What's my final answer? 40 divided by 10 is 4. Now, if you're one of those students that would wish to cross simplify, 5 over 1 times 8 over 10. Check it out. Watch this. I could cross cancel or cross simplify if I wish. Now, I could simplify 8 over 10 if I wish, but I see right away that 5 and 10 have a common factor of 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So check this out. 8 times 1 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So it's really the same thing. Again, personal choice. All right, let's keep going. Let's look at the next one. So 2/5 times 10. So basically, I'm going to take a little bit of a shortcut. What I should do, honestly, is just rewrite it Okay, if I want to take a shortcut, I could just do this, put it over 1. But I like to keep my work organized, so it's 2/5 times 10 over 1. And remember, you can use the dot, it doesn't matter. And then you multiply going across. 2 times 10 is 20 over 5. My final answer is 4. Let's see what's next. At the top here is just another example of another problem with cross-canceling. If you would prefer to do this one, you could do 7 over 6 times 3 over 9. 7 times 3 is 21. 6 times 9 is 54. And then you have to simplify. I know that 3 can go into both of them. 7 can go into them. So I could do this. Actually, no, just 3 would go into that because the 7 does not go into 54. So this would be divided by 3 over 3. So then my final answer would be 7 over 18. This is in place of this one. Here's where we cross simplify over here. The other one is just straight across and then simplifying at the end. So keep in mind that you don't always have to cross simplify. Again, it's user's choice. Let's look at the next section, which is multiplying a mixed number by a whole number. Number 1 says put the multiplying mixed number by a whole number, put the whole number over 1. Change the mix. This is super important here, guys. You cannot multiply by a mixed number. You have to change the mixed number to improper. Okay, those are the 2 major steps here. So if you have a mixed number times a whole number, let's look at the example here. So look, 1 4/5 times 6. 1 4/5 times 6. So what you have to do here is you have to change this mixed number to an improper. Okay, you have to change that mixed number to an improper fraction. So I see here 5 times 1 is 5 plus 4 is 9/5 times 6 over 1, and then you do the math. You can simplify when you multiply, before you multiply if you can. Okay, let's look at the next example. 2 3/4 times 3, here we go. And I would definitely say rewrite it. 4 times 2 is 8 plus 3, that's 11 over 4 times 3 over 1. Then you do the multiplication. No cross simplifying because there's no common factors. I have 33 over 4. I do the division and I wind up with 8 1/4. The last concept is multiplying a mixed number by a mixed number. And for that one, here's how it works. Change all mixed numbers to improper. Then put all whole numbers over 1 if you have any. But for this, if it's a mixed number times a mixed number, you're going to have to basically just perform number 1. Change all mixed numbers to improper. Then you can cross simplify if you can, multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and always put your answer in simplest form. Okay, here's a great example. Let's just take a look at this. 1 3/4, circle of life. 1 times 4 is 4, plus 3 is 7/4. 2 1/2 is 5 over 2. You can cross simplify if possible. This one you can't. 35 over 8. Put it in simplest form, 4 3/8. And here's our last example for today, okay, which is going to be 4 3/4 times 3 1/2. Put this as a mixed number into an improper. 4 times 4 is 16 plus 3 is 19 over 4 times 3 1/2. Which is going to be 6 7 over 2. My final answer, you do the, now look, this is a big number. This is actually kind of annoying. So I'd have to multiply 19 times 7 and then 4 times 2. So this is 8. This is 133. And when you do your division, your answer is 16 5 over 8. Okay, try the other examples on your own and simplify if possible. If you have any questions, please put a chat in the Google Classroom. And your homework, you'll see, is going to be on the next page. Check the Google Classroom. This is Mrs. Spatola wishing you a great day. And remember, always, always be kind.